Hey, what's up? This is Drew's Comic Reviews. This is a new issue. This is a new episode where I take a random comic out of my, I got a pretty big collection of comics, and I take a random one out, and I just open it up and read it, and then we find out what's inside, and I talk about it, and I kind of give like a little review of it and tell you what to think about it. And this week we pulled up Bone number 17 by Jeff Smith. And so this is about, we're not really super sure what this is about. And the cover, it looks like these people are like kind of building a fence, but then you see there's like a monster hand. And so they're probably gonna have to fight a monster, which that should be pretty cool. And I don't know if I think this guy's Bone, this little guy. I guess he looks kind of like a bone or something. Okay, so this is like you can see it's kind of, they didn't this is like a comic that they didn't color in. So it's kind of maybe more like, have you ever seen on the newspaper where they have the comics in there? I think this is kind of maybe more like that, or like Dennis the Menace and Family Circus and Dennis the Menace and all those other like funny comics that they have in the newspaper, which is always like my favorite part of the newspaper was like the comics. So this is kind of cool because it's kind of like it'd be kind of like Dennis the Menace. And I also always really liked the Dennis the Menace movie, where he has his, because it's kind of like in the comic, he has Mr. Wilson, and then he's got his parents. But like the movie's pretty funny. He has to he was always like bothering Mr. Wilson, who's his neighbor, and like he spilt paint all over his garage, and he like sucks it up with a vacuum, and but then he like puts the vacuum in reverse. He cleans up all the paint, and then he puts the vacuum in the reverse, and he just like shoots it up, and it goes over the fence. And Mr. Wilson is like making he's like grilling food out, and he doesn't see it, but all the paint lands on the food, and then he just cooks it and like never even sees it. And then he eats it, and he's like cheering it, and he's like, what is going on? And then he's like, it tastes like paint. And he did like no idea that like Dennis the Menace shot all that paint on his food. And I just thought that was like really hilarious. And he also Mr. Wilson had this like special flower, and Dennis the Menace had to stay the night with him. And then he had this special flower, and it only blooms for one day, and there's one special day where like it blooms, and he had all of his friends come over to see it because it was like gonna happen, and everyone was like waiting for it. And then Dennis the Menace, he sees Mr. Wilson's house gets broken. A burglar comes and takes all the stuff, and Dennis the Menace is like, Mr. Wilson, someone stole your house, or someone broke into your house. And then everyone runs and goes to look, and then the flower blooms, it opens up, and then like Mr. Wilson's the only one who sees it, and he's like so mad that everyone missed it, and then he blames Dennis, and then he like yells at him, And Dennis goes and he runs away. He like runs. He runs into the woods and he meets the guy who broke into Mr. Wilson's house, and then everyone has to go look for him. And then Mr. Wilson, he's like feels bad that he yelled at Dennis, and then they find him, and then Dennis Menace, he like beats up the burglar guy, and he doesn't even really realize that he's doing it. And I think the like burglar guy eats a bunch of beans and he like farts into the campfire. And this is just like a really funny movie. Okay, so and also in this, you can see it's like just pretty much like a black and white stuff, and it's like an old guy talking, and he's like in a cloak. But what of the disturbance we felt in dreaming? Do we ignore this at our peril? And then I don't really know what that's about, but next it says Grandma's Story Part. So this was Grandma's Stories Part 2, and then the next is Grandma's Story Part 1. And then they also have like bona fides, which is like the word bona fide, but it's like because the comic is called Bone. And I think it's all like letters they send to the comic book. So if you want to check out Bone, it's Bone number 17 by Jeff Smith. You could probably just like get it off eBay. So, all right, thanks for watching.